The station was quiet, almost too quiet. Jace, a young human worker, stood behind the counter of Supply Post 9 on the edge of Viralon sector. It was late, and he was ready to close the shutters and go to his small sleeping pod. He had spent the whole day loading crates, fixing scanners, and dealing with grumpy space miners. Nothing special had happened today. Just another boring shift in a forgotten corner of the galaxy. Then the bell above the door rang. It wasn't loud, but in the silence, it felt like thunder. Jace looked up, expecting maybe a drunk miner or a lost tourist. But what he saw made him freeze. A small girl stood in the doorway. Her skin was pale gray, her eyes soft and glowing blue. She looked no older than 8 human years, thin as a wire, with long white hair full of dust. Wrapped in her arms was an even smaller child, maybe 3 or 4, asleep and breathing slowly. Both looked like they hadn't eaten in days. Their clothes were torn, barely hanging on their bones. The older girl stepped forward. Quietly, carefully, she looked around, scared but determined. Then she whispered, her voice shaking, "Just milk for my sister, please." "I'll pay you back when I'm grown." Jace blinked, unsure if he heard right. She spoke broken English, but the message was clear. He stepped out from behind the counter and knelt down slowly so he didn't scare her. "You're not from this sector, are you?" he asked gently. She shook her head and pointed to the sky through the window. "Our ship. Gone, crash. Only us," she said. Jace looked at the younger one, who whimpered softly in her sleep, without thinking. Jace opened the small fridge behind the counter and pulled out a bottle of synth milk. He also grabbed a protein bar, something soft, not too hard to chew. He walked over and placed them on the floor in front of her. Not too close, just enough so she could reach. The girl looked at the food like it was magic. She slowly bent down, placed her sister on the floor, and picked up the milk. As her fingers touched the bottle, something strange happened. A soft blue light appeared on her palm, forming a glowing symbol, like a spiral mixed with stars. Jace's eyes widened. "What is that?" he whispered. The girl didn't answer. Maybe she didn't understand. Or maybe she didn't know herself. She gave the milk to her sister, helping her drink with gentle hands. Then she sat down beside her and opened the protein bar with shaking fingers. Jace stood still, watching, confused and curious. He knew helping undocumented aliens was against regulation. He knew cameras recorded everything, but he didn't care right now. This wasn't about laws or space politics. This was about 2 hungry kids and a moment of kindness. "You don't have a name tag," Jace said softly. She looked up, licking crumbs from her lips. "No name now." Old name burned. Jace didn't know what to say, so he just sat down beside her on the cold metal floor. They sat like that for a few minutes, quiet, peaceful, sad. Suddenly, the girl stood up, picked up her sister, and stepped back toward the door. She looked at Jace one last time. The glowing mark on her hand pulsed gently. "I will pay you back when I'm grown," she whispered. Then she walked out into the dark night. Disappearing into the shadows of the landing bay, Jace ran outside, but she was already gone. No trace, no footsteps, no direction. He checked the security feed, but the cameras glitched exactly when she entered and left. All footage was corrupted, like she was never there. That night, Jace couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the symbol on her hand. He searched the database, but nothing matched it. He tried drawing it, scanning it, even calling an old tech friend, but no one knew what it meant. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Was she a refugee? A lost heir? Some ancient bloodline hidden in a child's body? He didn't know, but something deep inside him told him this wasn't over. This wasn't the end of a moment. It was the beginning of something much, much bigger, and all he had done was give a little milk to a starving alien girl. The next morning, Jace arrived at the station early. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, his mind still spinning from last night. He kept replaying the moment the alien girl whispered those strange words, "I will pay you back when I'm grown." It echoed like a promise, or maybe a warning. He walked past the entry scanner and went straight to the storage room. The place where she had sat, fed her sister, and then vanished. But the spot was clean, like nothing had ever happened. No crumbs, no milk bottle, no sign of two small children. It was like a dream, but Jace knew it wasn't. He had seen her, heard her, fed her. He rushed to the control room to check the security footage. The guards were drinking synth coffee and talking about a malfunction from the night shift. Jace sat at a terminal and typed in his access code. He pulled up the recordings from the exact time she had entered the store. Error, the screen blinked red, showing static and glitches. The entire section 3 minutes before and 10 minutes after her visit was corrupted. Even backup servers couldn't recover it. No video, no sound, no proof. Jace leaned back and sighed. Unbelievable. He tried asking a few others at the outpost. A cleaning bot rolled through that hallway. A delivery drone passed overhead, and an old vendor sold spices near the door. But none of them saw anything. The cleaners' log showed no entries, the drone's feed had errors too, and the vendor. He said, "Boy, I saw nothing but dust and quiet." Jace felt the chill of something strange wrapping around him. It wasn't just a girl running from trouble. Something else was going on, something hidden, and he had been pulled into it with just one bottle of milk. Later that day, a black uniformed officer from the station's inner command arrived. She walked into Jace's store without saying hello. Short hair, cold eyes, no smile. She held a small data pad and looked at Jace without blinking. "You were on shift last night?" She asked. "Yes, ma'am." Jace answered quickly. "Did you witness any suspicious activity?" She continued. Jace paused, then shook his head. "No." "Nothing strange?" She narrowed her eyes. "Nothing at all?" "No unknown visitors. Unauthorized transactions." Jace stayed calm. "Nothing that I remember." She tapped her pad and said, "There was a camera failure, timed exactly with your login. I noticed that too." "Ma'am," Jace said, trying to stay cool. "Maybe a glitch in the central node." She didn't smile, just stared at him for a long second. Then she said something that froze his blood. "If you aided any Varellan-class refugees, you could be charged with treason against station protocol." He swallowed hard. She turned and walked away without another word. But Jace knew he was being watched now. They didn't have proof, but they suspected something. That night, Jace sat alone in his pod, thinking, who were these Varellan-class refugees? Why did helping one bring so much trouble? He searched the public network, but the files were sealed, classified, restricted, deleted. The only mention he found was a whisper on an old forum. First seed wiped out, but not forgotten. It meant nothing to him. But the name gave him goosebumps. He opened a blank page and tried drawing the symbol again. The one that glowed on the girl's hand. It looked like a spiral, but inside it were tiny dots. Like stars, he remembered it clearly, burned into his mind. He saved the sketch and encrypted it in a hidden folder, just in case, the following day. Something strange happened again. When Jace returned to the station, someone had placed a folded cloth on the counter. Inside, it was the empty milk bottle he had given the girl, perfectly clean, and underneath it, a small metallic ring with the same glowing symbol engraved. No message, no sender, no clue. Jace held the ring in his hand, feeling the faint warmth it gave. Then he heard a whisper nod from around him, but inside his head, "Thank you." It said, soft and distant. He dropped the ring in shock, heart pounding. It rolled under the counter and stopped, glowing softly like a memory that refused to fade. From that moment, Jace knew something had changed. He was no longer just a store worker. He was now part of a story that no one else could see, a silent witness to something ancient, something powerful. And the galaxy would come looking for the girl, for the ring, and for him. The disappearance wasn't just about a missing child. It was the first move in a game that had begun again after centuries of silence, and Jace, without knowing why, had just made his first move too. The days passed slowly, but Jace couldn't stop thinking about the ring. He had hidden it in the supply locker behind the old power cells. Every time he walked near it, he felt a strange warmth in his chest, like someone or something was watching, not in a bad way, but like a silent guardian. He didn't tell anyone about it. The station still felt normal on the surface. Miners came and went, security ran drills, and ships docked for refueling. But underneath, something felt off. People were quieter, and the black uniformed officers were showing up more often. They spoke to no one and carried scanners that hummed when they walked past. One evening, while Jace was restocking water packs, a voice called to him from the alley behind the station. It was raspy and old, but familiar. "Boy, you gave her milk, didn't you, Jace?" Turned fast, heart racing. Standing in the shadows was an old alien mechanic named Rulon. He was half-blind and covered in grease, always fixing junk ships that no one else would touch. Jace had helped him once with a food order, and they had shared coffee a few times. Jace didn't answer right away, but Roulet nodded like he already knew she had the spiral mark. "Didn't she?" he said, voice low. Jace whispered, "What do you know about it?" Roland stepped closer, his mechanical leg clicking softly. "I haven't seen that mark in 70 years, he said. "Not since the fall of the first seed." Jace frowned. "First seed? What is that?" Roland looked around, then pulled a small device from his coat and activated a sound shield. Now no one could hear them. Long ago, before the Empire Wars, there was a bloodline called the First Seed. He said they were not rulers by force, but by ancient right, born with memory code in their DNA. "Memory code?" Jace repeated, confused. "Yes," Roland said. "They carried knowledge, history, and something else. Something called the calling." Jace didn't understand fully, but he listened carefully. The calling would lead them to the right place at the right time. Roland explained, "That girl. She is one of them, or what's left of them. And that ring you now carry means she trusts you." Jace felt a chill. "How do you know about the ring?" Roland smiled sadly. "Because I once held one too." He lifted his shirt and showed a long scar across his ribs. "I protected one of her kind once, and I paid the price," he said. "But I would do it again," Jace asked. "Why are they being hunted?" Roland turned serious, his voice dropping lower. "Because whoever controls the last of the first seed controls the path to the Ark." Jace blinked. "What Ark?" "No one knows where it is," Roland whispered, "but legend says the Ark contains the heart of the first civilization. Something powerful enough to create or destroy galaxies." Jace was silent, trying to understand. "So, giving her milk was more than just kindness?" Roland nodded. "You've been marked, boy, whether you like it or not." Before he could ask more, a loud noise cut through. The Alea patrol drone flew past. Scanning the walls, Rula grabbed Jace's arm and leaned in close. "They'll come for you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow," he said, "but when they do, you must run. And when you run, follow the stars." "What does that mean?" Jace asked quickly, but Roland just shut off the sound, shield, and walked away. Limping into the darkness, he left behind only questions and a heavy silence. That night, Jace lay in bed, staring at the ceiling again. He held the ring in his palm, the spiral glowing faintly in the dark. He whispered, "Why me?" But there was no answer, just a soft hum, like a heartbeat from long ago. The next morning, He arrived at the station to find two officers waiting for him. They were not smiling. Not friendly. "Jace Thorne," one of them said. "We need you to come with us for questioning." Jace nodded calmly. "Sure. Let me grab my ID." They waited at the door, but instead of walking to his locker, Jace slipped down the back corridor, past the emergency hatch. He didn't know why he was running, but his legs moved faster than his thoughts. Something inside screamed, "Run. Now, follow the stars." He reached the edge of the launch pad, where old ships sat forgotten. In one of them, covered in dust, the ring began to glow. Brighter in his pocket, it pulsed 3 times. And the door to the ship unlocked automatically. Jace climbed in, heart racing, lungs burning. He didn't know where he was going, but maybe the girl did. Maybe she had left a path only he could follow. The stars above him twinkled like eyes, watching his every move, and somewhere, out in that vast, cold sky, the girl was waiting. And her promise was just beginning to unfold. The ship was old, rusty, and barely held together. But as soon as Jace touched the control panel, the systems lit up like it had been waiting. Lights blinked, engines warmed up, and a voice, calm, gentle, and clearly artificial, spoke through the speakers. "Star path active. Destination encoded." Passenger Jace Thorne recognized. Jace sat in the pilot's seat, heart thumping. He didn't know how to fly a ship properly. But somehow, the system flew itself. The ring on his finger glowed softly, matching the lights on the dashboard. Then, without warning, the ship lifted into the air and vanished into the stars. For 2 days, the ship traveled through unknown space. Jace saw places he had only read about in old books, broken planets, floating ruins, and shimmering nebulae past his window. He had no idea where he was going, but he trusted the path. One that began with a starving girl asking for milk. On the 3rd day, the ship slowed down and entered orbit around a massive structure. It wasn't a planet or a station, it was something else. A giant wheel-shaped object, ancient and beautiful, surrounded by glowing rings of blue light. The ship docked automatically, and the voice said, "Welcome to Alaris Hold. Step forward." Jace stepped out, and the air felt warmer than space should allow. He walked through a corridor filled with strange symbols and humming crystals. At the end of the path stood a group of armored guards in silver cloaks. And in the middle, standing proud, was her, the girl. Now fully grown, tall and graceful, with long white hair flowing like silk. Her eyes still glowed softly, but there was something new in them: strength, wisdom, and fire. She wore robes made of layered fabric, stitched with the same spiral symbol he had seen on her hand. Jace froze, unsure what to say, but she walked forward and smiled gently. "You kept the promise," she said. "You followed the stars." Jace nodded slowly. "You said you'd pay me back when you were grown." She laughed softly, a sound both human and alien. "Yes," she said. "And now I am ready." The guards lowered their weapons, and she waved him forward. They entered a grand hall filled with floating lights and soft music. She led him to a balcony where they could see the galaxy stretched out before them. "I am called Lyra now," she said, "High Regent of the First Seed." Jace asked quietly, "What is this place?" "This is the last stronghold of my people," she answered, "hidden for centuries. Waiting for one who remembers kindness." He turned to her, confused. "But why me? I'm just a store clerk. I only gave you milk." Lyra looked at him with serious eyes. "That milk saved my sister's life," she said, "and it reminded me that compassion still exists." Jace leaned on the balcony rail, trying to process everything. "So what now?" "Why bring me here?" he asked. Lyra pointed to the stars. "War is coming," she said. "Old powers are rising again. They want to control what my bloodline protects, the Ark," Jace said slowly, remembering what the old mechanic told him. "Yes," she said, "and I need help from people who act not for gain." but for good. He turned to her, nervous, but honest. I don't know how to fight, he said. I don't have powers or armor. Lyra smiled. You have something stronger. A good heart. That night, they dined in the Crystal Hall with leaders from different species. Lyra introduced Jace as her personal guest. Many looked confused or even angry. Why was a human outsider given such honor? But Lyra stood tall and declared, this man once saved a child with nothing but a bottle of milk. While others turned away, he asked for nothing. He deserves everything. Whispers filled the hall, some in support, some in protest. But no one challenged her openly. Jace sat quietly, feeling out of place. Yet deep down, something inside him began to shift. Maybe he wasn't just a clerk anymore. Maybe this was his new path. Later, Lyra walked with him through the gardens of the hold. The plants glowed faintly, and tiny winged creatures buzzed around them. Jace asked, Is your sister safe now? She is, Lyra said. She trains to become a healer. And she still remembers your face. Jace smiled, touched by the thought. They stopped beside a pool of glowing water. Lyra looked at him and said, I brought you here because I trust you, but also because soon you must choose. Choose. What? Jace asked, whether to return to your old life or walk with me into the storm. Jace didn't answer right away. He looked up at the stars, so vast, so endless. The same stars that had guided him here, and somewhere in that silence, he already knew his answer. Jace didn't sleep that night. He sat on the edge of a marble platform, staring out at the galaxy from the gardens of Alera's hold. The stars looked closer here, brighter, almost like they were listening. In his hand, the spiral-marked ring still glowed faintly, pulsing like a calm heartbeat. His thoughts were as storm memories of the store, of the little girl asking for milk, of Lyra now standing as High Regent, and of her words, soon you must choose. The next morning, Lyra summoned him to the central council chamber. It was a circular room, vast and glowing with soft light. Floating orbs hovered above each council seat, each one representing a different species. Some beings were massive and armored, others small and wrapped in cloaks of energy. All of them turned to stare as Jace entered behind Lyra. She stood at the center of the room, tall and calm. Her voice echoed, not loud, but full of power. This is Jace Thorn, she said. He is the reason I am standing here today. A low murmur spread through the chamber. She raised a hand, and the room fell silent. He gave me milk when I was starving, not knowing who I was or what I carried, she continued. He asked for nothing, yet gave everything. That moment changed the course of our future. One of the council members, a thick-scaled being from the Kravok Dominion, spoke sharply. And for this small act, you offer him a seat among us. Lyra nodded. Yes. Another voice, more diplomatic, asked, what role does he serve in your plans, Regent? Lyra replied, he will serve as my advisor, my reminder, and my moral compass. He is not here for politics. He is here for truth. The chamber fell into debate. Loud voices arguing. Some supported her decision, others warned of risk. But Lyra stood still, eyes focused, unshaken. When the voices grew too loud, she raised her hand again. Let me remind you, she said. The blood of the first seed gives me right to choose, and I choose him. With those words, the chamber quieted. The oldest among them, a floating entity wrapped in white light, spoke softly. Then, so it shall be. The human will remain. Jace sat beside Lyra, unsure of what had just happened. He leaned close and whispered, why do you trust me this much? Lyra looked at him with deep, honest eyes. Because when I had nothing, you gave me hope, she said, and I never forgot that feeling. Later, they walked through the council archives. Walls of glowing memory crystals told the story of ancient wars, lost civilizations, and the fall of the first seed. Lyra showed Jace one particular memory a time when her people ruled peacefully across star systems. But then came the betrayal, the Great Purge, and the hiding. All I ever wanted, Lyra said, was to live in peace, to raise my sister without fear. Jace watched the images of ships burning, cities falling, children crying, and then he saw her young Lyra hiding with her baby sister in a broken cargo pod. It all made sense now. You survived all this. And still stayed kind. He said quietly. Lyra turned to him. Because I made a promise, not just to my sister, but to myself, and now to you. Jace paused. What kind of promise? Lyra looked toward the stars again. That when I rise, I will rise with compassion, not power, she said. And I will protect those who protect others. She placed her hand gently over his. The galaxy is full of darkness, Jace. But sometimes all it takes is a little light. Jace nodded slowly. Then let me help carry that light. Lyra smiled. You already are. That evening, Lyra held a ceremony small, private, sacred. Jace stood with her beneath the star dome, as she officially named him Guardian of the Flame. It was a title once held by her people's closest protectors. Many were shocked, but none could deny the bond between them. The spiral ring was now part of his skin, glowing whenever she stood near. From that day forward, they stood together not as ruler and servant, but as equals. Every meeting, every mission, Jace was there. He questioned what others accepted. He spoke for the weak. He reminded the council that greatness begins with kindness. And through him, Lyra's rule became not just powerful, but deeply respected. But peace is never safe for long, as they returned to her quarters after the ceremony. A coded message arrived on her private channel. Lyra opened it and read silently, her smile fading. Jace saw her hands clench, the light in her ring dimming slightly. What is it? He asked, voice low. She looked up, eyes full of fire again. They've found my sister's location, and they're coming for her. Asterisk, the message changed everything. Lyra stared at the screen, her hands shaking slightly. Her sister, the one Jace had once given milk to, was alive, but in danger. The message didn't say who sent it, only that her sister had been found hiding on a small moon near the rim of the galactic border. And enemy ships were already on their way. Jace stepped beside her, voice calm but serious. What do we do? Lyra didn't hesitate. We go get her, she said. Right now, within minutes. The Silver Star cruiser Hopefire launched from Alara's hold. Jace stood beside Lyra on the command deck, both wearing light armor marked with the spiral of the first seed. The journey to the moon would take 4 hours at warp, but the silence inside the ship made it feel much longer. Lyra stared ahead, focused and cold. Jace looked at her, then said softly, "You're scared." She nodded slowly. I promised her safety, and I failed. Jace placed a hand on her shoulder. You're not alone anymore. As the ship dropped out of warp, alarms began to ring. 3 enemy vessels circled the small moon, each one bristling with weapons. They were warships from the old empire, the ones who once hunted her kind. They came prepared, Lyra whispered, but Jace saw something else on the moon's surface. Just beneath a rocky cliff was a small signal beacon pulsing weakly. She's down there, he said. I can feel it. Lyra nodded. Prepare. The drop pods? Within minutes, Jace and Lyra descended in silence through the black clouds. The drop pod landed with a thud, smoke rising from the earth. Blaster fire echoed in the distance, red streaks cutting through the sky. Jace stepped out first, his weapon ready. Lyra followed, her eyes glowing like fire in the storm. They moved through narrow canyons, dodging patrols. The air smelled of dust and danger. Suddenly, from behind a stone, a soldier charged. Blaster aimed at Lyra's head. Jace reacted fast, tackling the soldier. Knocking the weapon away, they struggled, and Jace managed to pin him down. Lyra raised her hand, and the ring on her finger flashed. The soldier froze in place, surrounded by a glowing net of energy. "He'll sleep for an hour," she said, breathless. "Let's move." After 30 more minutes of running and hiding, they reached a cave entrance hidden behind vines and metal wreckage. Inside, a faint humming sound could be heard. Lyra stepped forward slowly, her voice soft. "Ari." "It's me," from the shadows. A small figure emerged. It was her sister, older now, but still with those same glowing blue eyes. She ran forward and hugged Lyra tightly, tears falling silently. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. "I always will," Lyra replied, holding her close. Jace smiled. But the moment didn't last. Outside, heavy footsteps echoed. Enemy patrols had tracked them. "We have to go now," Jace said quickly. Lyra turned to her sister. "Can you walk?" She nodded. Yes, the three of them ran back toward the extraction point, dodging blasts and leaping over rocks. Just before reaching the pod, a missile hit nearby. Throwing Jace backward, Lyra turned and screamed his name. He was alive, but pinned under a fallen beam. She rushed to him, trying to lift it, but it wouldn't move. "Leave me," Jace said, coughing. "Get her out." Lyra shook her head. "I won't leave you." Ari stepped forward, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. She raised her hand, and the symbol same as Lyra slid up on her palm. The beam began to lift on its own. Shaking and groaning, Jace crawled out just in time. Gasping for air, they jumped into the drop pod, and Lyra slammed the launch button. The pod rocketed back to the HFY, while the enemy ships chased behind. As they docked, the crew pulled them in and jumped to warp within seconds. The stars stretched, and the enemy vanished from view, safe, for now, in the medical bay. Jace sat up as a medic, treated his arm. Lyra sat beside her sister, gently brushing her hair. Jace looked at the two of them, and something clicked in his heart. They weren't just symbols of an ancient race. They were survivors, family, hope. Lyra walked over to him quietly. "You saved me again," she said. Jace smiled weakly. "That's what friends do." She sat beside him, lowering her voice. "I have to tell you something. Something I haven't told anyone." Jace looked at her, waiting. Lyra took a deep breath. "You are not just a helper to my cause. You are part of it," she said. "The ring chose you for a reason." "What reason?" he asked slowly. "I don't fully know," she admitted. "But I believe the arc will only reveal itself to someone with a pure heart, and the storm we just survived was only the beginning." 2 weeks passed since the rescue. The galaxy had changed. News spread quickly that the High Regent of the First Seed had returned with her sister. And rumors grew louder that a forgotten power, something ancient, something hidden, was waking again. But the real story was not about war or politics. It was about a promise. And the one who had kept it. Jace sat alone in the observation deck of the HFY. He watched the stars move slowly across the window. His hand still wore the glowing spiral ring, but the light inside it pulsed differently now. Not just a glow but a guide. Lyra had told him it was reacting to something nearby. Something calling out from deep space. He heard the door slide open behind him. Lyra stepped in, calm as always. Her eyes softer now. She sat beside him, saying nothing at first. Then she whispered, "The ark is real." Jace turned to her slowly. "You found it?" She nodded. "We followed the ring's signal, and it's leading us to the edge of the Virellan Rift, the place where time bends and maps break." Jace said, remembering old legends. "Yes," she replied. "And only the ring bearer can enter safely." Jace looked down at his hand. "I'm not special," he said quietly. "You are," Lyra replied gently. "Not because of power, but because of heart." The ship set course for the rift, engines humming louder than ever. The crew prepared for the unknown shields. Data scans, long range comes, but no machine could fully explain what they were about to face. The rift was like a scar in the galaxy, filled with lightning, mist, and whispering echoes. Even the most advanced ships avoided it. But Hopefire moved forward, led by Jace. The ring on his hand grew brighter with each passing hour. It pointed like a compass, guiding the ship through the chaos. Lyra stood beside him the whole time, trusting him completely. As they crossed into the deepest part of the rift, the stars vanished. The screens went dark. Sensors failed. Time itself seemed to slow down. Everyone held their breath, waiting for something, anything. Then it appeared, a great sphere, floating in complete silence, covered in vines of crystal, surrounded by drifting, shape-souled ships, statues, and fragments of lost worlds. This was the Ark, not a weapon, not a throne, but something alive. The ship stopped just outside its field, no way in except for one. A small bridge of light extended from the Ark's surface, leading to a single entrance, and it only opened. When Jay stepped forward, he turned to Lyra. Unsure, what if I'm not ready? She smiled gently. You are. He nodded and walked alone across the bridge, his ring glowing like a star in his hand. Inside the Ark, everything was quiet. He walked through a long corridor filled with images, moving pictures of old times. He saw the first seed people when they ruled with wisdom. He saw their fall, their pain, their hiding. And he saw something else, a vision of a small act of kindness, him giving a little girl a bottle of milk. The image pulsed brightly. Then the ring melted into his skin, and the floor beneath him glowed. A voice spoke. Not from outside, but from inside his heart. You gave without asking. Now you shall receive without limit. A soft wave of energy filled him, not like power, but like understanding. He could feel everything, the pain of the galaxy, the hope of the forgotten, the bond between lives. And in that moment, the Ark awakened. The outside began to light up. The crystal vines shifted, forming paths of light reaching across space. The storm within the rift cleared, and the stars returned. Lyra and her crew watched in awe, their eyes full of tears and light. Jace stepped out of the Ark, changed, not in appearance, but in presence. He carried the Ark's blessing, now not as a ruler, but as a guardian. And the galaxy would know peace again, not through power, but through small acts of kindness multiplied across time. Back at Lyra's hold, a great celebration was held. Aliens from every sector came, not just to honor Lyra, but to thank the human who saved their future. Jace stood quietly at the edge of the crowd, overwhelmed by the attention. Then Lyra approached, holding her sister's hand. Ari ran up to Jace and gave him a small pendant carved from the core crystal of the Ark. For you, she whispered, because you believed in us. Jace knelt and hugged her gently. Then Lyra stepped closer and said, Now I will repay my debt. Jace looked confused. You already have. She smiled. No. This is only the beginning. She took his hand, raised it before the crowd, and declared, This is Jace Thorn, the first human guardian of the Ark, protector of the forgotten, keeper of the promise. And all across the galaxy, people whispered anew. Tale of a boy who gave milk to a starving alien girl, and in return was given the stars.